right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We are going to discuss the foundations, the very beginning of the practice of SRI. SRI is a breathing and somatic integration practice that goes along with the stages of healing that was developed by Dr. Donnie Epstein, the chiropractor who teaches the style of chiropractic that we practice at Organic Living Chiropractic. And for each one of these different stages, the stages of healing, the stages of experiencing the world and life and ourselves, there's an exercise that can help us to move deeper into that stage. And it's only by fully experiencing, fully moving through a stage that we're able to move on to a different stage. Now, the fun part about this is although there are 12 stages, we are not in a single stage at any point. There are different parts of us. There are different aspects to us. There's a social component. There's a body component. There's a mental component. There's a career component. So in each one of those different facets of ourselves, we can be in a different stage. So the magic of this process is recognizing where we are and when we're having trouble moving through a particular way of being. All ways of being are important at different times, at different places, for different reasons. Big problems come up whenever we stay completely in one way, in an ever-changing world and universe. That's not going to go well for us. So in order to gain our flexibility, in order to gain our ability to move with the ebbs and flows of life, to move through the stages of life, we're going to present some of these exercises today. Today, we're really just going to talk about the very beginning part of this process, stage 1, 2, and 3 out of these 12 stages, because these are the foundations. These are the ones that most people spend a tremendous amount of time and energy trying to avoid instead of moving through. And also because they are so foundational, if we can own these, if we can really master these, the rest of them are a lot easier, a lot more fun, and it's sustainable to cycle through these at different parts of our lives. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And let me share my screen here. And here we go. So the 12 stages of healing and the SRI exercises. Again, SRI stands for Somato, which means body, Respiratory, which means breathing, and Integration, which means getting our body integrated, getting it connected with our touch and our breath. And when we are connected, we can operate at our highest potential, because our body is literally a collection of trillions and trillions of cells. The majority of those cells are actually not human cells. They're bacterial and viral cells. But how do we get integrated? How do we get all of these cells working together for a common goal as opposed to working against each other? This is one of the outcomes we can achieve with SRI. So the whole point of this is, like I said, that connection, getting us all together. In chiropractic, we have this very, very controversial concept. And this concept is only controversial because it's very misunderstood. Whenever we really start to understand it, it's like, well, of course, that's the way that it works. But the concept is that there's only one cause and only one cure for disease. Now, the one cause for disease is the body's inability to comprehend either itself or its environment. And there's multiple different ways that that inability to comprehend itself can be expressed. If we cannot comprehend ourselves, identify what cells are our cells that we want to keep in, we can develop things like autoimmune disease, where our body starts to attack itself. If we can't recognize ourselves and ourselves enough to identify what is not us, we won't be able to mount an immune attack against a pathogenic virus or bacteria. If we can't comprehend ourselves and our environment, we will step off a curb and roll our ankle. Whereas if we can comprehend ourselves, know where our body is, and know where it is in space, then we'll recognize where that drop off is, and we'll do it in a different way that our body can handle it. So at the root of everything that goes quote unquote wrong with our body really comes down to some sort of inability to comprehend ourselves or our environment. And so the goal of any healer is to support the body being able to do what only the body can do. There are only two ways that healing can happen. No other way is healing possible. There are only two ways, and that's either the repair or the replacement of cells. Now, no one outside of a living body can heal or replace cells. That is completely an internal job. And in order to do that effectively, again, we have to be able to comprehend ourselves and our environment. So the only thing that any doctor can do is to remove any obstacle that's standing in the way from the body being able to either heal, which means replace or repair cells. So with the practice of SRI, what we're doing is we're connecting to our body. We're recognizing what's going on in our body so that we can actually work with this collection of trillions and trillions of cells and ourselves remove as many obstacles as we possibly can. Now, remember, our bodies, all of our bodies started off as a single cell, and they built themselves into the most complex mechanism that we know of. There is nothing that comes even close to how complex our bodies are. And we're running these bodies without even thinking about the vast majority of what's happening. Our liver is doing thousands of chemical interactions per minute. And I guarantee you, the vast majority of us could not name any of those, but yet it's running. Yet our body grew. If we get a paper cut, our body will heal that paper cut without us understanding how that goes, because the body is wired for adaptation, growth, and healing. It will do that as long as it's not inhibited. So the practice of SRI is going to help us be able to tune in and really be raw and real about the ways that we are inhibiting ourselves. Now, my father is an engineer. And one of the things that he taught me from a very young age is anytime you're approaching a problem, always look at the most simple things first. Because if you can fix a thing with a simple solution, if you can fix the most simplistic aspect of something, you're not going to waste your time doing all of the expensive and complicated things. So first, start with the simple. First, start with the ways that you can uninhibit your body. Start with the ways that you can connect with yourself and identify where the obstacles are that you can remove. If that doesn't work, then you can always move on to something more complicated. But it's so incredibly frustrating. It's so incredibly hard whenever we jump to the more complicated things. We're spending all our time and energy, and everyone else is trying to get involved in a super complex thing, whenever really it was this simple solution. So always start with the simple. Always start with the least invasive thing whenever it comes to healthcare, because you can always move to complex and you can always move to more invasive, but you can't move backwards. Once you go to invasive. Once you jump into surgery, you can't undo that surgery. So let's take care of the simple things. And when we find that that may not be enough, then we know it's time to move on to something more complex. So the first three stages that we're going to talk about today are in the season of discover. These 12 stages of healing are divided up into 3 different seasons. Now there's 4 seasons here for you math wizards out there. Good job. All right. But these 3 seasons are the season of discover, of transform, and awaken. Now, whenever we get really good at each one of these stages of these seasons, we can move on to a 4th season, which is the season of integrate, which means we can mix and match. We can take some of the best of each one of the seasons and we can blend them together to get truly extraordinary outcomes in our healing, in our relationships, in our life. But in order to get into that 4th season, we have to really experience and then understand the other seasons. And so today we're going to talk about the season of discover. Discover is everyone's least favorite season because discover is the dirty season. It's tilling the soil. It's getting down into the muck and the mire and really being raw and real with ourselves and identifying what it is that we are doing that is preventing our own growth, our own development, and our own healing. Okay, it's in a sense the shitty season. But what makes the best fertilizer? Shit. So if we can really own our own shit, we can start to use that to fuel the growth that actually happens in the season of transform. So in discover, our goal is to find new and novel relationships between the way we've been avoiding, the way we've been disassociating, and the way that we have been running away from pain. Now, pain, nobody likes pain, but pain is a very important signal in life. Pain tells us that there's something, some way that we are going about life that is causing more damage than we are able to grow from. Pain tells us that there needs to be a change. Pain is basically like a fire alarm, and this is any type of pain. It can be physical pain, it can be emotional pain, it can be mental pain, it can be spiritual pain. But the purpose of pain is to interrupt our lives because something needs to change. And if we're not interrupted and we keep going, catastrophe will happen. So despite popular belief, pain does not tell us where the problem is, and then it doesn't even tell us what the problem is. It just tells us that there is a problem. And the more we try to avoid pain, the more we try to run away from it, the bigger the problem gets, the bigger the need for change gets. So the magic really comes in owning and mastering the season of discover. And when we do that, we can recognize the need to change in an instant. And it's not going to take our lives falling apart. It won't take our bodies falling apart. But in order to do that, we have to embrace pain. Embrace pain for what it is, which is the indication that change is necessary. Now, in SRI, there are some basics. There are some fundamental principles that are amazing in life in general, but they're the key to getting this practice to work. All right. And the first principle is what we call the 3 A's. And that's number 1, become aware. We cannot change without new information coming up. Without new awareness, there will be no change, no difference in how our body functions. So the first step is to become more aware. The second step is to acknowledge what you have become aware of. And the third step, which is by far the hardest, is to accept what you have acknowledged that you are aware of without trying to change it, without judging it, without making it good or bad, but just accept that right now, in this present moment, this is the way that it is. Now, that doesn't really seem like it's going to do that much. But if we cannot become aware, if we can't get new information in, if we can't acknowledge that new information, and if we waste our time doing everything except for accepting it, there is no way that we're going to be able to do anything productive with that new information. So when we find ourselves in a hole, the first step is to stop digging. If we want to make a change, we're going to need energy to do that. Energy is the potential to do work. And one of the simplest ways to get more energy is to stop wasting the energy that we have. So acceptance is the key to being able to use information and energy in a new and novel way to get something different than what we've had. And remember, if we have pain in any part of our lives, what we've had is the problem. And so going backwards is not the solution. So during this practice, again, we're going to be using our hands and we're going to be breathing. And now there's 3 different ways that we can play around with becoming more aware. Number 1, we can feel our body with our hands, and that's going to work really well for some of us. We can feel our hands with our body, and that's going to work really well for others of us. And we can feel the space around our body. That's going to work well for others of us. Now, in life and in SRI, there really is no right and wrong. There's what works, there's what kind of works, and then there's what doesn't work. So recognize everybody's different. There is no right or wrong way to do this, but there is a way that's going to work amazingly well. There's a way that's, going to produce a little bit of change. And then there's going to be a way that just doesn't work at all, and it's just a waste of energy. If you can identify those first 2, okay, just ignore the third one. Whatever's not working, don't put your time and energy into it. Don't try to make it work. Just become aware that it doesn't work, acknowledge that it doesn't work, and accept it. And don't try to make it work. Now, what we want to do, and we're going to practice this today at the end of this talk, okay, is we are going to create a sequence of awareness, a different order, a unique recipe in which way that we're going to put our focus, okay? Now, there's 3 different aspects of focus. There's 3 different components to our recipe, okay? Number 1, there's the breath. Actually feeling the breath in each different part of our body, feeling the ease or the dis-ease of breathing, feeling the flow of the air coming in and the flow of the air coming out. Okay. Number 2 is going to be movement. Now, every time we breathe, there's a rise and a fall. There's an expansion and a contraction. Okay, there's a filling and a emptying. So the movement that's associated with our body and with breathing. Now, the third strategy, okay, in this sequence, and it's not necessarily coming last for some of us, it may come first or it may come in the middle, is energy. All right. Now, energy is something that's a little bit of a challenge for most people, because they don't really have much of a basis to say this is what energy feels like. A different energy feels different, okay? So in order to feel energy, what I'm gonna ask is that everybody stand up, okay? If you can't stand up, don't worry about it, but ideally I want you to stand up, because what we're gonna do is we are going to vigorously move our bodies. All right, so I'm going to set a timer right here. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to move your arms and legs in as many different ways as you possibly can. You can run in place, you can do jumping jacks, whatever you want to do, but we're going to do that for a full minute. All right, so ready, set, go. And move, 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 move. Get your body moving. You want to get your body moving. You want to get as much moving as you possibly can. You want to go as intensely as you possibly can to really feel this charge of energy. You want to make that body just go, 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 go. You're using all of your potential. You're building up all of that potential in your body, and you're utilizing it to express physical movement in as many different ways as you possibly can. Move your knees, move your hips, move your shoulders, move your neck, move your hands. Keep going. We're halfway there. Move it, move it, move it. Keep going as fast as you possibly can. Keep going, moving, 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 moving. Just move as much as you possibly can. Move it, move it, move it, move it. Get all of that energy building up, building up. We're almost there. Just a couple more seconds. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And now stop. Be as completely still as you can. Hold your body totally still and feel all of that energy. Feel that momentum that you just built up. It can feel like a buzzing. It can feel like a draw to movement. It can feel like the air or the space around you is vibrating or very chaotic. But that's the sensation of energy. Now, each one of these different stages have an energy that's associated with them. Some of them are cool and calming and open. Some of them are very aggressive. Some of them are very, very drawn in and almost hopeless. So to feel the energy that you just experienced, and you can sit down if you haven't already, but to feel it moving, to feel it being in those different ways is really important for some of us to be able to experience before the other ones. Now, this sequence, this is going to be one of these. Energy, breath, movement is going to be the ideal way to start to focus on to become more aware. Okay, and that's going to be called our prime. Now, another one of these, movement, energy, breath, is going to be what's called our keystone. And our keystone is typically the way that we most often consciously try to be aware in life. And it'll work, right? It'll produce some change, but not as much as our prime, which typically we will apply unconsciously without really knowing, okay? And there's the third one in our sequence, whether it's breath, energy, or movement. That one's going to be called our drain. Now, when we focus on this one, it's going to be hard. It's going to require a lot of effort. It's going to be a challenge. It's typically the way that we experience pain, although we may not recognize it. So when we can identify our drain, the one that's a challenge, the one that's effort, the one that's just like a black hole we just put energy and focus into and nothing really happens and we're just struggling and we get confused and like, why is this happening and how is this going on, right? That one, just don't worry about. If you can just get down to one or two in that sequence, you're going to be doing really, really well. And if you get down to one or two and you get them in your right prime, then keystone, you do it in the right order, you'll notice that the third one will actually just come along. All right. So what we want to do is we're going to be using our hands on different parts of our body, and we're going to breathe fully, and we're going to follow that by either paying attention with our prime to the breath, the movement, or the energy, and then our keystone. All right. And so let me give you an example of this. So if I'm breathing into this part of me, okay, if my ideal sequence is breath, movement, or energy, I'm going to breathe into this area, and then I'm going to focus on the movement. Breathing in and noticing the expansion, breathing out, then noticing the fall. Okay. If my ideal sequence is energy and then movement, I'll be paying attention to the feeling of energy in this area, and then I'll move this area. I'll expand this area, I'll pay attention to the energy, and then I'll contract this area. Okay. And if the ideal order is movement and then breath, what I'll do is I'll expand this area and then breathe, feel the flow of air into this part of my body. And then I'll contract or relax, and I'll feel the escape of the air leaving my body. All right. And we can play around with this and recognize that this is a practice. This is a practice, and the more we do it, the better at it we're going to get. And it's okay to do it wrong in the beginning, as long as we're able to, at some point, identify, well, this really isn't working for me, and therefore I'm going to try something different. So the first stage in these 12 stages of healing is the stage of suffering. Suffering is this deep, dark, black hole in which it feels like there's no way out. It seems like there's never going to be an end to this. It's the experience that something's wrong. I don't know what it is. I don't even know what's wrong. If I don't know what's wrong, identifying how to get out of it's just so far beyond where I am. It's a dark, hopeless, apathetic place to be. We're going to be questioning, why me? Why not me? What's wrong with me? Why does this happen to me? Why does this never happen to me? Why does this never seem to end? When we get into the very beginning of stage one, we experience hopelessness, loss, despair, depression. But the good news is, if we can recognize where we are, and if we can fully move through this, we get the experience of peace and reassurance. That's how we know we're on the other side of suffering. The lesson that we need to learn, the lesson that's absent in our life, is that we must accept we are helpless. Now, accepting we are helpless does not mean giving up. Accepting that we're helpless means accepting that what we're doing is no longer working. Accepting helplessness is the recognition that we cannot go through life as an island, as an isolated being. We are a community of cells, and we are built for community. There are times we are going to need to reach out for help, but we will not reach out if we don't first acknowledge that we're helpless. We can't do it on our own. It's not working. If we keep going, it will never end. Without accepting that, there's no way that we're going to do anything different. Now, the cause of being stuck in stage one is there's a part of us that's been separated. It's been rejected. It's been demonized by the rest of us. And we cannot be complete. We cannot be a whole functional system if one part is not allowed to be a part of the whole. Now, the good news is that suffering begins and ends in the mind. So nothing physical, nothing outside of us needs to change in order to move through the stage of suffering. Suffering is very natural and never fun, never comfortable, but very good whenever we are operating with a distorted sense of self. Now, a distorted sense of self can never accurately see the problem. So the first thing we need to do is to stop. Stop trying to figure it out, stop trying to focus on the cause, and just accept that right now, with the way that things are, we are completely helpless. Now, this is the paradox of change. We cannot change anything that we're not fully aware of. The more we resist, the more we try to push away all of the stuff that we don't like, the farther and farther away from it we get, and the less of an influence we can have. So in order to produce change, we have to develop a relationship. We have to accept what it is that we would like to change. Now, the interesting thing about consciousness is that when we become fully aware, matter itself starts to change purely by being observed on a subatomic level. Self-awareness is transformative. Now, this exercise and each one of these stages are in the book by Dr. Donnie Epstein called The 12 Stages of Healing. And at the end of each chapter is a brief explanation on how to do these exercises. At Organic Living Chiropractic, the third Thursday of every month, we do a group SRI exercise together. And so if you're interested in actually experiencing that, please contact our office. If you're a practice member, you can join this any Thursday that you would like. And we can go through these different stages together, go through the exercises to fuel ourselves, to experience, to acknowledge, to accept these different stages so that we can move through them as efficiently and effectively and extraordinarily as possible. So tune in to one of those Thursdays and we'll go over how to do this exercise specifically. Stage 2. Stage 2 is polarities and rhythms. Stage 2 is this is amazing over here, and oh man, this sucks over here. These people, oh, these are my people. This is my family. Those people over there, no, they're terrible people. I want absolutely nothing to do with them. I really wish they would just die off. Okay, this thing right over here, this is going to be the saving grace of my life. With this thing, I'm going to be able to do it all. Because that thing over there, oh, it's causing me so much pain, so much distress, and I just need to get away from that thing. The rhythms and the polarities, the seeming opposites, we're going to experience in stage 2 that something is wrong, and it's definitely caused by a that. Not me, but that. And this over here is going to save me. The questions that we'll ask ourselves is what's causing this? Who in this situation is the right one? Who in this situation is the wrong one? Who can fix this? Who's going to save me? Who's going to get rid of that? What is the best? Oh man, and what is the worst? Why did they do this to me? What's this pattern here that's going on? When we get into stage 2, we'll know it because there's an anger and a hunger to make something different from the way that it is, right? It's this desire for change, but yet we don't really recognize, we're not aware enough to know who, what, when, or how to enact that change. Now, once we move through stage 2, on the other side is identifying a little bit more about what's true that's happening up underneath the surface. We'll get a big shot of energy, and there's going to be a lot of hope because we'll be able to recognize this seeming opposite and how things are actually connected. The lesson that we have to learn in stage 2 is that we must accept the polarities. We must accept the rhythms. We must accept the seasons, the seeming contradictions of life. Summer is very, very different from winter, especially here if you're in Colorado Springs, okay? But they're not necessarily opposites. It's just a different rhythm. It's just a different timing. And if we go outside and we're bringing our surfboard and we're in our swimsuits in the middle of winter on top of a mountain, we're not going to have a good time. Same thing as if we're all bundled up in our snow gear and we're over at the beach in the summertime, it's not going to go well. Okay? They seem like opposites, but they're actually part of the same flow. We have to be aware that life, healing, our careers, our relationships, they're processes. They're not events. And even our suffering has a rhythm to it. It has an ebb and a flow. And if you can acknowledge that ebb and that flow, well, that's just one step closer to being able to influence it in the direction that you would like to go in your life. Stage 2, again, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of charge, but it's way, way better than the despair and hopelessness and apathy. And it feels way better at times than stage 1, the suffering. The cause of being stuck in stage 2 is whenever we have overdeveloped an identity that's distorted. We've developed an attachment with this distorted sense of self rather than the true sense of self. And that distorted sense of self is the parts that we like as we're trying to get rid of the parts of ourselves that we don't like. Now, one of the hallmarks of stage 2 is that we project what we don't like about ourselves onto the outside world. Or we will project what we really like about ourselves onto the outside world. And we'll put people up on pedestals. Okay, this can be expressed in excessive judgment or blame, or it can be expressed in excessive worship. We can over-rely on these outside heroes or villains, and this is all in order to compensate for the fact that we are not acting as a whole self. We are not being real and authentic. We're being fake. We're being fractured. And so we're going to try to seek blame and seek salvation somewhere outside of recognizing that it's our fractured sense of ourselves, it's our stories, it's our role of a self that's causing the problem in our life, rather than healing and coming together and becoming more holy. Now, there's a secret weapon in stage 2, and that's humor. Humor discharges the pain of polarities or contradictions. Seeing the irony in a situation is very beneficial for generating more energy to be able to move through stage 2, where we don't have to judge or demonize or excessively glorify or worship. Again, this exercise is something that is in the book, The 12 Stages of Healing, or you can join us the third Thursday of every month and experience this for yourself. Finally, stage 3, the last stage in Discover. The experience of stage 3 is crap. All of these problems that I was trying to project out in stage 2, all of these problems that created so much suffering, all of these problems are about me. I'm the one that needs to change. I'm the one that keeps perpetuating this cycle by either refusing to change or wasting my energy so that I can't change. I'm the one that needs to change. But crap, Not quite sure exactly how, but at least now I know where to put my focus. The questions we're asking ourselves is, why can't I make a breakthrough? Why do I keep doing this? Why am I stuck? Why am I so blocked? Why can't I solve this? In stage 1, there's only a problem. In stage 2, there's a problem and there's someone that caused it. In stage 3, there's actually a self. There's actually a me. And since I am the only one that I can control, having a focus on me is the best way for me to be able to move forward in life. Putting our blame, putting the emphasis or focus on anything that we cannot control is a recipe for more suffering. Now, most of the time, we go through life stage 1, stage 2, and then we blow out in stage 3, and we go back to stage 1, and then stage 2, blow out to 3. Donnie Epstein calls this the 1, 2, 3 cha-cha. Stage 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if we acknowledge this, if we can become aware of this and acknowledge this, we don't have to repeat this pattern. We don't have to be stuck in this perspective. When we get into stage 3, the hallmark is it is so frustrating because we recognize we are the ones to blame. We are the ones to change. And the good news is, whenever we fully move through stage 3, we get to a place of peaceful waiting, knowing where to put our focus, knowing that change needs to happen, and just being able to be where we are right now and wait for things to start unfolding so that we can move on is so much better than suffering, so much better than blaming or excessively glorifying. The lesson that we have to learn in stage 3 is that the pattern of the process that we identify in stage 1 and 2 is somehow connected to how we are perceiving or reacting to life's events. The cause of being stuck in stage 3 is that we have rejected our responsibility to be consciously and deliberately involved in life's events. And instead, we've been giving away our power, giving away our ability to change, and choosing, whether consciously or subconsciously, to rely on our reactions, on our instincts, on our pre-programming, instead of our authentic, real selves. Now, responsibility in some people's world is a dirty word, but responsibility is literally the ability to respond. And if we cannot respond, things are not going to go very well. We will be victims to life. Everything will happen to us instead of us being able to dance with life, which is definitely the potential. We won't be able to control life ever, but we can make it a fun and beautiful dance with that ebb and flow, with those polarities. Now, recognize that every one of our thoughts, every one of our feelings, every one of our experiences, every one of our beliefs is all created inside and from our nervous system. We all think that we see out of our eyes, but all our eyes do is react to photon, to light stimulation. And that reaction is turned into an electrical and chemical interaction between the cells in our brain, and the experience of that reaction, the interpretation, what our brain thinks that reaction means, is what we see. So seeing and feeling has nothing to do with what's actually going on in the real world. It has everything to do with the way that we interpret it. Now, the good news is we can change our interpretations even if we can't change the world, even if we can't change circumstances. We can change how we experience them, we can change how we respond to them, and we can get a totally different experience. The reason we're going to stop on stage 3 is because stage 3 is the bridge between suffering and being able to actually do something about it. It's a very powerful stage. It's a very empowering stage. And so if we can move from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 consciously, we have the ability to get beyond the season of discover and move into the season of transform, where rubber meets the road and change starts happening effortlessly. But in order to do that, we have to surrender to a higher consciousness. Okay? Whatever that is, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they call it surrendering to a higher power. The reason that this is necessary in order to move on is because we are creating our problems. And if we're creating our problems and we are the biggest and best and smartest thing around, that's not going to go so well. Now, whatever you want to call it, whether it's nature, whether it's God, whether it's evolution, acknowledging that there is a process that is bigger than us. There is a flow to life that's moving in the direction of more complexity, of more growth, of more healing. Acknowledging that is so beneficial for being able to let go and to be in this present moment without having to be excessively focused on defending against all those things that happened in the past, or guarding and setting up everything so that we can avoid anything negative from happening into the future. Surrendering to something higher, something bigger, something smarter, something greater than ourselves is the key to being able to effortlessly move through these stages. In stage 3, as with all of the stages, naming the condition, thinking or talking about the problem stops the process. Because stage 3 is all about what needs to change. So the more and more we put the focus on something or someone else, the more we're giving away our potential to change, because we cannot control anyone except ourselves. So keeping the focus on where it is, that's empowerment. And lastly, we must feel it to heal it. Anything we are not aware of, we're not going to be able to influence, we're not going to be able to utilize for change. So being able to fully experience what's happening without trying to change it is the doorway to getting something very, very different. Now, last plug, Donnie Epstein, 12 Stages of Healing. Phenomenal book. Each one of these exercises is at the end of each chapter. You can also check out his website, epienergetics.com, and explore some of the phenomenal information and opportunities that's available to you. And again, the third Thursday of every month, feel free to join us and experience us moving through some of the exercises for these different stages together. Now, for the last few minutes, we're going to do an exercise. We're going to do a little bit of the beginning part of stage 1. And the goal in this is to help us to identify what is our primary order. What is our ideal strategy? In what order is it best for us to put our focus on our breath and on our body as we move through some of these stages? So find a comfortable place and just relax. Ideally, we would like to lay down. Okay, if we can't lay down, sitting down will work. I've even done a few of these exercises standing, although the beginning part of this is going to be a little bit of a challenge. But hey, if you like a good challenge, it can be done. So find a comfortable place. What we're going to do throughout this is we're going to be breathing in our nose and out our mouth, fully experiencing the breath, not pushing, not efforting, not struggling, just being aware when the top of the inhale occurs, when the bottom of the exhale occurs, and everything in between. Now we're going to start off by feeling the space around our body. Feel the air in the room that you're in. Feel all that space. Now feel the space in the body. Feel all the air in the body. Notice what it feels like to have the space in the body be in the space around the body. Notice what it feels like to have the space around the body in relationship to the space in the body. Breathing in the nose, out the mouth, full but effortless. Complete with no need to struggle or push. Now, as we're breathing, what we're going to do is we're going to put our palm over our palm. And we're going to place both hands at the very, very top of our chest, right where our throat meets our sternum. And just breathe right up underneath the hands. Feel the energy of the hands. Feel the energy right up underneath the hands. Feel the movement. Now move to the solar plexus. Now the solar plexus is right at the very bottom of the sternum, of the breastbone. So if you're pressing on that hard sternum, that hard breastbone, you'll notice that it'll have like a little end, and then it'll start to get soft. Right at the junction between that hard and that soft, right where that soft begins, that's our solar plexus. Palm over palm, not hand over hand, but palm over palm, right over that solar plexus. Feel the movement of the inhale and the exhale, of the expansion and contraction, of the rise and the fall. Feel the energy of the hands up underneath, all right, and on top of that spot. Feel the air filling that area up. Feel the breath. Feel the breath leaving, the air leaving during the exhale. Now move over to the belly button. Same thing, palm over palm, breathing in the nose and out the mouth. Feel the energy of that area. Feel the expansion and contraction, the rise and the fall. Feel the air moving into that area and only that area. Feel the air leaving during the exhale. Now, for the next few breaths, Move back and forth between those three areas and recognize which one feels the most peaceful, the most at ease, the most effortless, the most open, the most expansive, the most connected. Which one feels the most? If it's numb, if you're not really sure, if it's quiet, that's not the right spot. Which one feels the best to connect to? Which one that whenever you connect to it feels like a hug from one of your favorite people? Which one of those spots are you able to stay with the breath or the movement or the energy the longest without getting distracted? You're able to be with that part of you. Now, if you're having trouble identifying which one is the most effortless and open spot, what you can do is identify which one's the closed one, which one's the tight one, which one where it's a challenge to get the breath or the movement or the energy into or out of, which one feels just yucky and like you just want to run away from that, which one feels nothing, it's numb. You get there and you start to daydream, you start to drift off and hard to pay attention to. Whichever spot is the most challenging, don't go there. Choose another one. After that, you got a 50-50 shot. 50% is going to lead to an extraordinary change. The other 50% will lead to a good change. You can't go wrong. So identify your favorite, most connected, most open, easiest one to be with, and stay there. Or identify the most challenging one and go anyplace else. Breathing in the nose and out the mouth. Now, as you're breathing in the nose and out the mouth, what's the first thing that you notice? Do you notice the movement in that area? Do you notice the expansion, the contraction? Do you notice the air flowing in to that area? That would be the breath. Do you notice the air flowing out of that area? The filling and the emptying. Or do you notice the energy, the charge, the sensation? Which one of those is most obvious to you? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these. And as we're going through these, we're going to see which one is the most effortless, which one is the most challenging. If it's a challenge, that's not the right one for you. So in this spot, fill this spot up with air. Breathe fully into this spot. Start with breath and see what happens. Fill this area up with the breath, and only this area. Let all of the air fall out. Let the breath empty from this area. As we're filling this area up and allowing it to empty, what do we notice? Is it getting more easy, more effortless, more open, more free? Or is it becoming a challenge, a labor, something we have to focus on and concentrate? Now, We're going to try a different strategy. Expand this area. Move it upwards. Allow it to rise. Push it high up and then push it back down. Let it fall. Let it collapse. Let it close in. Move this area and only this area, expanding as we inhale and contracting as we exhale. As we move this area, is it becoming more challenging or is it becoming easier? Are we getting a charge? Are we getting energized with all this movement? Or is it labor? Is it hard? Is it draining us? Now we're going to try something different. Imagine the energy flowing into this area. Feel the charge as the body inhales. Experience the peace and the calm and the decrease, the dropping out of that energy as we exhale. Imagine this area filling up and imagine it emptying out. Feel the potential. Feel the draw toward the breath. Feel the desire, the draw towards the exhale. Feel the energy as the body breathes in and out. As we're feeling the energy, does the breath and movement become lighter and easier, more natural, more effortless? As we're feeling the energy, we're feeling the draw, we're feeling the desire. Does the breath become more labored? Is it harder? Do we have to think about trying to breathe? Do we have to think about trying to move? Now, whichever one of those strategies seem to give you more energy, whichever one of those strategies seemed to make it easier to continue on, it was lighter, it was more effortless, it was more freeing, that's the one that we want to start with as our prime. And recognize when we've just begun a practice, we don't know what we're supposed to be feeling. So play around with this. What you think is your prime today, maybe you'll find out tomorrow that it's something different, and that's okay. That's being aware, acknowledging, and accepting what is, not being tied to what was, or having a belief or expectation about what will be. It's being in the present moment, and the present moment is the only time and place that you can actually do anything. It's actually the only time and place that ever really exists. Everything else is just a memory or an illusion, an imagination. So play around with the energy, with the movement or the breath, and see which one allows you to do the other two more effortlessly, more efficiently, more naturally, which allows you to do the other two with more experience, with more sensation. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If anyone has any questions, if you're watching this live, you can type into the chat. If you're watching this on Facebook, either live or later on, type in a comment. We'll be checking in on these things. We'll answer your questions. Or You can contact our office, Organic Living Chiropractic. See us on our website, organiclivingchiropractic.com, on our Facebook page, and you can check out our YouTube page. Please subscribe, like our Facebook page. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And we will see you all in the field. Have a great day.